Now I'd like to go ahead and introduce our first speaker, Hamilton from California.
My name's Hamilton, and I'm an addict. Wow, what a crowd. I'm really impressed at looking around and especially up with the folks I was sitting with and seeing two people from India, two of our fellowship members that came over, and one of them is going to share here tonight with us also. And it's so impressive for me to see Narcotics Anonymous growing leaps and bounds and all over the world. And it just makes me feel very honored and very privileged. To be part of this fellowship. I have some very wonderful friends here tonight, and my very best friend is here with me. I have some sponsees. I have 3 sponsees here with me tonight. My loving wife and my son, his wife Jency, and my 2 grandchildren are here also, Dylan and Sol. And there was a time that I never thought I would ever be able to actually be any place to be able to say anything about anybody. And to be able to stand up here and to do that is such an honor for me, and it's all because of this program in Narcotics Anonymous. I was really a wretched dog when I walked into these rooms, and through years of using and through years of doing things my way, and really not knowing any other way to be, when I finally got here to Narcotics Anonymous, it was so difficult for me to understand that I could stay clean. I had no concept of staying clean. We grew up with the adage, once a dope fiend, always a dope fiend, no hope without dope, that type of thing. And I kind of bought that ticket. I figured that that was my life. I started using it at a very early age, drinking and taking Red Devils, if any of you remember Red Devils. And we'd kind of mix them with beer and really get one on. And I guess in those days it was kind of fun. I never really went to any proms, or I never went to a high school football game. I never went to I never participated. Actually, I didn't participate in life. The only thing that I participated in was with the people that thought and felt exactly the way I felt. And it's funny how we all gravitated towards each other. And we used as long and as hard as we could. About the only breaks in between was when we get arrested and wind up in jail someplace, and we were taken off the streets. And a lot of us joked that it was basically a vacation, and I was kind of, in those days I kind of enjoyed being in just as much as I enjoyed being out, because usually I'd know just as many people on the inside as I knew on the outside. So it was kind of like home week. Actually, that was kind of my high school, camps and youth authorities and that type of thing. Somewhere along the road, it got to be a 24-hour-a-day job. Now, I just want to say from the start that when I talk about my drugs, my drug of choice, they were my drug of choice. It was my story. And I don't want anybody in here to feel any different or like you're unique because you might not have taken what I took, or you might not have done what I done. There's a lot of guys in it that did a lot more than I did, and there's a lot less people that did less than I did. What the deal is that the common thread that binds us all together is that we all have the disease of addiction. Whether you were, taking... Whether you were the housewife that was taking diet pills, or somebody that was smoking weed and that's all they did, whatever it was, if it became a problem and you're taking up space here in this room today, then we've got a problem. We've got the disease of addiction. And disease of addiction is just like it says in our book, in the white book. It's just like diabetes or any other disease. We can arrest it with the 12 steps of Narcotics Anonymous. The 12 steps of Narcotics Anonymous has worked wonders for me. And like I said before, when I first got here, I didn't think it was. I looked at the 12 steps and how they were written, and I thought that anything written like that, I thought that I had a big problem. A friend of mine says that when he got here, he expected to see Freud and the Pope and everybody else because his problem was so big. I felt like it was very complicated, and I didn't know how 12 steps could help me stay clean. It's not a prerequisite for anybody to go in and out of these doors. I believe that I was very, very tired when I got here. I was tired in 1970, but I couldn't stop using. When I got here when I was introduced to the program in 1979, I was tired then. It was very difficult for me to throw in the towel. And I was very fortunate. I was in a state institution in California, and I had met a gentleman at that time that was, my estimation, was a real stand-up, solid individual. And he was the kind of guy that I would have hung with, and he was everything that I thought that I would, run around with. And him and I, in 1971, I believe, both of us got on methadone together. We stayed on methadone. He stayed on methadone for 4 years. During that time, I was one of my trades was I was a barber. That was one of the first things I had learned. Back in I think 1964, they had a try to help the addict, try to help the parolee kind of program, and so through the vocational rehab, they sent me to barber college. And I think the only reason I say is they kept sending checks to the house, so we survived on that. And so as long as the checks kept coming, I kept going to barber college. And I finished barber college and got a license. And I'm still licensed today. I don't work at it, but that's... Anyway, I was working in a barber shop, and Bob kept coming into the barber shop, and we would talk about old war stories and whatnot. And one day, he told me that he was getting off methadone. And I really didn't know where he was going. He said that he had another place to go, and I figured that I would see him down the line someplace. You know how we always kind of stay together, but we were kind of connected, but things happen, and he kept coming into the barber shop. It took a while. He was gone for a while, and then he came back, and he always came back, and he paid for his haircut, and his car was always clean. And I would check those things out, how pressed the guy was, and I figured that he was doing something, but he wasn't on methadone. I figured he had to be doing something. And one day he copped to it after about 4 years, and I was on methadone for 8 years by that time. He told me that he was going to Narcotics Anonymous. The only thing I knew about Narcotics Anonymous at that time was that panels used to come into the institution that we were at the time, and as far as thinking that they could help me, I didn't think they could help me or anything else, as I said before. He asked me if I wanted to go to a meeting, and I was kind of weaning my way off methadone, and I finally got off methadone, and I took him up on it. He took me to my first Narcotics Anonymous meeting. And as I said, it was kind of difficult for me to make it at first. The very last time that I went out, we used to call them oil burners, and I went out on about a month oil burner, and I spent all the money I had, and I tapped the till at the barbershop about 100 times, and took everything I could get my hands on. And when I finally came back, I gave him a call, and I asked him if he was available, if I could talk to him. He said, "Yeah, come on over." And I came over, and his wife answered the phone. She's here. She answered the door. She's here tonight also, Sydney. And when she answered the door, she looked at me, and she started crying. I didn't understand why she was crying. And the way I looked, I had lost another 30 pounds. I was yellow from hepatitis again. I was sick. And that's why I started out saying the wretched human being that I was when I got to Narcotics Anonymous, because that's what I looked like. She gave me a hug, and I walked in, and Bob gave me a hug. He never turned his back on me. He never acted like he was too good, and he didn't act like that I was one of the type that was incapable of ever staying clean. He always welcomed me back into his house, and he welcomed me in that day. And he asked me, he said if I was ready, and I said, I just don't know. I didn't know if I wanted to live or die, and I think I'd rather die than live. I was whipped. I was very tired, and I was just, I was all in. And he says, Ham, he says, every time you go out, you turn your back on the gift that God is trying to give you. And he's trying to give you a gift of life. Is that better? Is that better? So, he might have said that 100 times before, but I didn't hear him. I heard him that night. And he says, there's a lot of people around here that love you, and every time you go out, you kind of take a piece of them with you. I really didn't understand that, because I didn't understand how, I didn't know about love, and I didn't know about fellowship, and I didn't know about people really caring for each other, because I was one of these kind of guys that I figured I came here by myself and I was going to leave by myself. And whatever I did along the line, man, if you happen to fall in the way and got hurt or whatever happened, man, well, shame on you. And that's the way I felt. And so I didn't know anything about this love thing. And I understand about that now, because I've had friends that's gone out over the years. I've had friends that's gone out and come back, and they've taken a little piece of me with them. I've had friends gone out, and I've had friends die while they were out there, because sometimes this door doesn't work both ways. It's not a revolving door. And I started understanding about the disease of addiction and how serious this disease is, that it really doesn't care about me. And if I'm really barking up the wrong tree if I'm trying to show this disease any respect at all, because it really doesn't respect me one bit. All it wants to do is see me in the grave, or see me doing time someplace, or wasting a lot of time and wasting away my life doing something that God wants me to do something different. And as long as that disease had me, then, it was happy. And it didn't care how it had me. So I started working the 12 steps in Narcotics Anonymous. He told me that guys like me, we got to get down to it, and we have to start writing right away. Talked about the first step, about being powerless and unmanageable. I wrote on that. Wrote on the second step. This man was he wanted me to get in and start writing, because he felt as though putting the pen to the paper was very revealing and very therapeutic. And I believe that today because that's what I do to my sponsees. They may balk, but they sure do it because that's the way I feel, and that's the way I was taught. And we went through the whole 12 steps. And some of the steps were very difficult. The third step was very difficult. I had Southern Baptist upbringing, and I felt as though that God was very punishing, except for the God that I had when I used to take LSD, and in those days you would expect it to have like some kind of religious experience, and so some spiritual experience, and I still couldn't tell what that was other than people would walk around and read like a small meditation book with a guy's picture on it that was, I think his name was Yogananda. So, which was great. I mean, it was a good deal, but we were someplace else reading that book, so I didn't know about that. And so what's custom made about this program in Narcotics Anonymous is that you can choose your higher power of your own choice. This program is custom made for everybody in this room. If it was a dogma, if it was something that we had to adhere to strictly by, it would be very difficult for any of us to stay, because we're the kind of people that says, if somebody says go right, we always go left. Somebody told me, don't look in this room today because it's too big. First thing I did is I came and looked in the room. I said, geez, this room is big. So I worked the 12 steps in Narcotics Anonymous, and I started to feel the freedom they were talking about. It didn't happen overnight. It wasn't something I thought very abstract. I was very one-sided. I thought one way. They called us regulars in them days, and the reason they called us regulars is because we was regularly going to jail. And I it was very difficult for me to break out of that box that I had put myself into. I grew up to a family of, my mother was deaf mute. I say hello to you, my friend. And my father was very, very old. He was 72 when I was born. And I have a younger brother. I think he was 78 when he was born. My wife goes like this, strong family. And believe me, my mother was an incredibly religious lady. She came from Kentucky. She was Kentucky, and very, very religious. Believed in the Bible. Believed everything about the Bible. A very, very good woman. And she just didn't know how to communicate with her sons. She had 3 sons, and my father was a beautiful person. He very a strong character, good fiber, a good man. He didn't know how to communicate with us. Also, he was born in 1877, and when I would ask him about something, he would tell me about Silver City, New Mexico, in 1877. We used to have historians come to the house and he would talk and tell them about things that was going on. But living in the town that I lived in at that time, things didn't relate too good, I didn't think. And so there was a lot of shame and guilt going on. I'd have to help him across the street. I'd have to speak to my mother at that time with my hands in Sears store, and I would notice that the other children didn't have to do that with their folks. And so I became very, very shameful of my parents, and at the same time, that shame turned into guilt because I didn't feel as though I was supposed to feel that way about my parents, and how that perpetuated, and it was like something I couldn't get off of, and I didn't spend a lot of time at home. That's basically how I grew up. My brother was a drug addict also, and he's right with me today. Him and I call each other on a very daily basis. He's a very beautiful individual, and his wife, and I just, this program, Narcotics Anonymous, has helped me to recoup relationships and things that I never thought I'd ever be able to recoup. I've been clean a while, and I've worked these steps many times over. I can't tell you how many inventories my sponsor had to tell me, stop writing, just stop. He says, I usually tell everybody to continue writing. And he says, stop, because I'm always writing. I was always writing. Now it's kind of tough for me to start writing again, not through any fault of his own, but just I guess maybe I'm going through a phase. It's given me this foundation that I have today, and now I'll talk about the last year of my recovery. I've gone through a lot of things during my recovery, and a lot of ups and downs, and it hasn't been like a cakewalk. Most of the time I fought the recovery process more than I went with it. I didn't know anything about surrendering, just like a lot of people in here. Probably every one of you, if you all raise your hand. We don't surrender easily. We're the kind of people that it's easy to have faith when everything's smooth and rosy. When the road gets real rocky, that's when our faith gets a little shaky. At least it was with me, and that's when I started to take control of things. It should be the other way around. That's when I should start relinquishing everything to my higher power. And a lot of times during my recovery, I would take it back, and I would get in the driver's seat because I felt as though my higher power wasn't working on time. He's always on time. I'm the one that's never on time. I get in the driver's seat, man. I start really doing some weird stuff. I start saying things that become hurtful. I start to protect myself. One of my biggest character defects, step 6 and 7 is what I'll be on for the rest of my life. I've written about them over and over again. I know what defects I have, and I start to understand, man, that when I start to get in the driver's seat, the very, very first thing that happens is I start to protect myself. And when I protect myself, that means that I start to get paranoid. I start to think about me instead of you. I start to get consumed with protecting myself, and pretty soon, man, it's me against you. And pretty soon I start to pull back from you, and pretty soon it's like I'm putting on my combat gear, and I'm starting to get ready to go to town. And that's what happens, man, when I start getting into defects. And it talks about once we're in defect in one area, we're in defects in every area of our life. We start to hurt and damage, and we start to leave a path of destruction, and and that's just what the disease likes. The disease does not have to have you taking pills or shooting stuff or smoking weed, man, to have you. All it has to do is have you in defects. As soon as it has you in defects, it's got you for another day. I got 2 sons. I had 2 beautiful boys. One's here with me tonight, and one isn't. Boy that's with me tonight he's made me very proud, as my other My oldest boy has made me very proud. He's going to college, and he's just doing, sometimes I live vicariously through him because of all the things that he's doing and some of the things that I haven't done. Because I used to have a lot of couch dreams about all the things I wanted to do, and then I would go back into some knot, and then it would be, couldn't do it again, you know. And he's doing everything that he wants to do, and it's all very, very positive. He has a lot of virtues and a lot of good stuff going on, and that's what I have gotten through working the steps of Narcotics Anonymous. A lot of good virtues. Well, my problem is I have to watch my virtues that they don't go into character defects, because we can go a little bit further with it, and so I try to keep a balance. But balance for an addict is like the pendulum swinging. When it goes past center, here's balance, and it goes like this. And sometimes we try to capture that balance, and it's very difficult for us too. But through meditation and working with a sponsor that we trust, and working with our higher power, man, we seem to attain that balance. My older son, and I guess it's the sheep that strays the farthest, is the one that you want back the most. When he was born, he had learning difficulties. He had learning disabilities and hyperactive. I wasn't around. I left when my children were very young, and I didn't come back until years later. I would pop in and out on them and try to be the father and try to teach them what I thought that I was supposed to teach my children, like trying to be tough and trying to do all the things that I thought a young man should know how to do. And I was so far off base, I didn't know anything about being a father. At those days, I was a biological father. Today, I'm a father. My older son, he went down the same path as I went down, and drugs for him became a disease, and drugs for him took him to all those places just like it took me. And about 2 years ago, he had gotten in a lot of trouble. He had picked up 3 robbery beefs in California, and at that time he was stealing bicycles. I stole bicycles. I sold them. My fence would take bicycles. He had a fence that would take bicycles. Problem is that the bicycles he was taking had kids on them. So he would muscle the kids off the bicycles and take the bicycles. Well, they don't look too kindly on that. And I don't know any place that does. I don't know any place in the United States that does. Well, they didn't take too kindly to him. And sometimes the courts don't care if you're developmentally handicapped. And sometimes the courts don't care if you have a problem with drugs. No matter how much you may say that, you're willing to go to a drug recovery house. Sometimes, man, the mothers of those children, man, want justice, and that's what was happening in that court that day. They gave him 3 years in the state penitentiary in California. He was still on medication at the time, and he had tried this program, but the program, he would go in and out, and a lot of people loved him. He was Ham's son. And every place he went, wherever he went, if people knew me, they knew Jimmy. And I guess Jimmy was just young. He had a lot of tread left, just like I had a lot of tread left when I was 30 years old. And he ran into a real monster one night, and he just couldn't come out of it. And last October, he committed suicide. And is probably the hardest thing for me to get through. And I know my life will never be the same. I know two people here tonight that have the children that died. And I've talked to both of them, and they feel the same. You know, people said in those days, let him go, you know, before he died, you know, let him go be the addict. Well, you know, that's all good and well, you know, he's my blood. And I stuck with him. I just didn't know how to hold him. I didn't know how to kind of hold him back, you know. And I mean, I was working part-time jobs to keep him in recovery houses. And it got to a point after talking many, many times with my sponsor told me, he says, you're going to have to set boundaries. I'm not telling you to cut your son loose. You'll never do that. He said, I wouldn't do that. He says, but you have to set boundaries with your son, you know, because he's going to eat you up. He's an addict. That's not Jimmy you're talking to. You're talking to the disease. And so I started setting boundaries with my son. And he understood that when I told him, that's enough, I can't do any more for you, he understood that. First time I did that, he had a lot of choice words for me, like, well, you was never there for me anyway. And, you know, no, I wasn't. I wasn't there for him, you know, but I'm there for him now. And but he understood that after several times, and our relationship got better, and I was able to say no when I meant no and stick by it. And so, you know, that was the dilemma that I had at the time, and what it was is that it turned into a fantastic solution through the help of the people in narcotics, not through the help of my sponsor, and through the help of my higher power that gave me the courage to be able to say that to my son without feeling so guilty and so, you know, racked with guilt that I should be doing something else. When he died, my son came from Kentucky, my brother came down from Northern California, my friend Bill was there, my wife has always been there with me, and you know, we had a memorial service. My younger brother, who I haven't talked about, is a minister, and he did the eulogy for him. And it was a beautiful, beautiful service. A month later, I was, you know, I knew I had hepatitis C very bad. And I knew I had liver problems I took a shot one time in 1960 sometime. And it just had some junk in it that just didn't work out for me. But I had hepatitis C real bad, and it was a chronic active type. And they told me that I was going to have a liver transplant one of these days. And the doctor took an x-ray and an MRI, and he said, there's something in there. He says, maybe I should take a look at that. And a month later, I was diagnosed with cancer of the liver. And then shortly thereafter, I was put on the list for a liver transplant. It's been a very, very difficult year. I don't believe that God is shooting lightning bolts down on me. I feel as though that life shows up. My God wants nothing but good for me. He's taken care of me very, very well up until this very, very point right now. He's the one that guided my sponsor to me. He talked through my sponsor to get me to come to the program. I give everything to my higher power. My higher power he's taken care of me very well. Sometimes, like I said before, man, I think that I can take care of business better and I can move faster, but I got myself on a real rib about that. So now I'm waiting for a liver. I didn't want to turn this into a woe's me meeting, you know, but this is life showing up. A month ago, a very good member of our fellowship, who a lot of you know, passed away from the same thing, Veto. And I was honored, and very privileged to have done they asked me to do the eulogy for him because he was one of my other very best friends. Him and I roomed together for years and, started our recovery journey together and things have developed into what they are today. If you have any doubts whatsoever about this program, fear no more, because I'll tell you, there's no place else for us to go. I've looked around, and there's no place else for me. The only thing that using has to offer me, man, is institutions, jails, and death. And it tells it right in the white book. I believe it wholeheartedly, and I have no place else to go. I've learned a lot of things around here, and I talked about virtues a few minutes ago. And virtues and some of the very good things that I've gotten out of this program through writing my 4th step and working on my step 6 and 7 and giving back in the 12th step has taught me many things about this program and about life in general, in and out of this program, about people outside of this program, how to treat people and how to be, treating people with respect and not having a pecking order in here. Everybody is the same. I came here with a pecking order. I don't have a pecking order anymore. I've learned how to be colorblind here. I love all my brothers and sisters. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be me. I wouldn't learn anything about me, and I'd be dead. Because that's right where we're all supposed to go if we keep using. I started learning about discipline. I thought that I was a very disciplined person when I got here. Disciplined that I could sit in a jail cell, not say anything for days on end, or be disciplined in the way I walked or the way that, I stood on a corner and how I kept my clothes pressed or how I kept my shirt and whatever over my arm, like we did then. Dope fiends look the same all over. If you're in Baltimore or New York or Long Beach or Los Angeles, you can always tell the dope fiend standing on the corner. I'd go to any neighborhood, it didn't bother me a bit, and they knew why I was there. But I thought that was discipline. That's not discipline. Discipline, man, is learning how to respect our individuals that are in the program in Narcotics Anonymous. It's learning how to work the steps. It's learning how to be there for other people. It's learning how to, and learning about love in Narcotics Anonymous. It's learning about letting other people have a chance to make it. Somebody walks in here and I might get a few boos. People walk in here with 30 days and the guy with the old timer walk up and try to knock them off base. We don't have the power to push somebody out the door, but I'll tell you one thing. We got enough power, man, to knock somebody off the track. We don't have the right. We don't have the right to stand up and hurt another individual. My sponsor told me that. He says, never hurt another person in here. Never hurt a member of Narcotics Anonymous, and never hurt anybody in life in general. And I've tried to adhere to that. And it's all through Narcotics Anonymous that I've learned these things. So I've reevaluated my thinking. I've reevaluated the way I live. I've reevaluated the way I approach relationships. I'm in a beautiful relationship today with my wife. She is, now that is one stand-up individual right there. She is solid as a rock and good as gold. Everything that I've been through in the last year and a half, she hangs right with me. And she always says, you know, all you old dope fiends, they should make a mold out of you, because once you're gone, you all are gone. And I got to laugh, because things are a lot different out there today. I don't know if I could hang. But she has been with me through thick and thin. My friends have been with me through thick and thin. Nobody has turned their back on me here. And I guess that's what I came up here to tell you all, that Narcotics Anonymous works. And you stay around here. If you're having a little bit of trouble right now, that's all right. It might get worse, but then it'll get better. You know, just throw yourself into the steps. We didn't come here weak people. You know, the heart of steel is tested by the hottest fire. And some of us has been in some extremely hot fires. I would say all of us have. And, you know, we walked around in a prison within our own selves, and we don't have to do that anymore. But when we stand up here and we think, I just can't take it for another day, and I'm going to go out and use, don't do that. You know, call your sponsor, go to a meeting. If all else fails, pick up a newcomer, start working the steps, and God's going to take care of you. He took care of me. Best of luck.
Thanks, Hamilton. Okay, those announcements keep on coming. We got one more. Jazz Breakfast is listed in the program guide as starting at 9:30, but on the tickets it says 9 a.m. It will start promptly at 9 a.m. So you want to go buy the tickets. Go buy the ticket and not the program time. It will start promptly at 9 in the morning. Unfortunately, the time couldn't have been a half hour later. It had to be a half hour earlier. Okay, our next speaker is Peter from India.
नमस्ते, मेरा नाम पीटर है, मैं एक वेस्टर्नी हूँ. My name is Peter. I am an addict. I am a member of the foundation group of Narcotics Anonymous, Mahim, Bombay, India. And by trying to follow a simple program of Narcotics Anonymous, the 12 steps, I am clean today. I am extremely grateful to my higher power, to all of you here, and to the host committee for giving me the most wonderful days of my life. I have never been able to express the joy that I have experienced when I found people so loving and concerned about me. Here I have found the love that I have never found in my life any time. When I received the message that I have to speak at a convention, I asked many of my friends, what should I share? What is the sharing I have to do? And my sponsor told me that you go there and just tell your story. That is all that you have to do. The first drug of my choice was alcohol. I started drinking quite early in life. Around at the age of 13 or 14, I used to look forward to those occasions like Christmas, New Year, where I had a chance to drink. Mind you, this is the time when there was total prohibition in Bombay. And I used to look forward to these days when I had a chance that I could go and drink. And one thing I used to find at myself, that on every occasion I used to find that I wanted more and more, and I would invariably get drunk. So this time, at the age of 18, I got a job in the railroad as an apprentice. And this time now I thought that now I had the right to drink. There was nothing that could halt me now. And it was at this time that I started drinking daily. My drink intake started daily. Very soon it increased. The quantity increased, the timing increased. And within a period of 5 years, before I could complete my apprenticeship, I had already become a full-fledged alcoholic, in the sense that I needed a drink every day. At that time, I got in touch or got friendly with a girl who was the daughter of the distiller, and it struck in my mind and I thought that the best thing is to get married to her, that Today, friends, she is my wife. I have been married to her for 33 years. See, to cut a long story short, my drinking started increasing after I got married, and it went so bad that I could not go to work, I could not do anything except to drink. And finally I had come to such a stage that I was virtually begging for my drinks. At this time, two friends had come close to me. Usually I used to find that whenever somebody was passing across the road, they would go along the other side. But this time these two came to me and they told me, "Come on, Peter, we'll show you a new joint." I jumped at that idea and went with them, and they took me to my first AA meeting. That was the first Alcoholics Anonymous meeting that I attended. And it was here for the first time I seen people who were like me, who were able to stop drinking. My stage had reached such that I thought that I would never be able to do anything about my drinking. And here for the first time in my life, I seen people who were like me, who were able to stop drinking. So I stuck along with them, and I attended their meetings regularly. Two important things I learned in those meetings was, one, that in this world there are some people who cannot drink, in the sense that they have an allergy for alcohol, and every time a drink goes down their system, they find that they have to have more and more and more. This I could identify definitely with them, because that was what was happening to me. And the second thing that I learned was that I could stop just for one day, that is one day at a time. And with these two ideas, that the first drink does the damage and not to drink today, I was able to stop drinking. I stopped drinking. And this happened that I thought that now I have achieved everything, that I was able to do what I just could not do during my whole life that time. So what happened after that was, after this thing, now after a few days I found, not a few days, I was able to stay for a few months as such, that nobody showed me how to live. That was it. Nobody showed me how to live. They showed me how to stop drinking. But I just couldn't live now. They had taken away the crutches and I was unable to walk. That was the state I was in. And I found that now what am I to do? There was so much of creditors, so much of pain, so much of problems which I had created, that without things like that I could not do anything. And that was the time I found the magic substance, what was hashish. And now I thought that I had learned to conquer this whole problem, that I knew that if I had one drink, I would go back to the gutters from where I had come from. I did not want to do that, so I could keep away from the first drink, but now I took the substitute that was hash. And this initially was okay, but very soon I found that my intake increased, my consuming time increased, and I was once again what I was when I was drinking. Except that now I was not drinking, I was smoking my alcohol. This continued, friends, and things started getting worse. Worse in the sense that I was totally beaten mentally, financially. In all fronts, I said that I just could not do anything. I was in a real total mess, and I just could not know how and what to do. It was during this time in Bombay, the AA had a newsletter which the local fellowship was printing. And in that, I read about a small article in that, wherein it was written about the love of God and how God was working miracles and how things happen. I was using that time, and during this stupor, when I read that, I took a pen and paper and wrote out, there was an address in the newsletter from whom this was written. And I made it a point to write to that person about how fake she was, what she was telling, what about the love of God. I was now 7 years in the AA without a drink, and I was worse than what I was when I was drinking. So this letter, somehow I found the courage to post. And after that thing, friends, that was the miracle that had happened in my life, in the sense that I started getting a lot of replies from all over the world. This insert, what was there in the newsletter, was a part of a world hello or some news that was going on of the AA. But through them I got a lot of encouragement about how they too suffered, how they too found the answer. But I did not stop. I used to read them and keep them, read them and keep them. And in that, I had received the message of Narcotics Anonymous. Although I received this message, I was not able to pick it up. I did not know. I didn't do anything about it, because I used to keep on. I tried many times to stop. I did stop. It only for a matter of 2 days, 3 days, and again I would start. I was not able to do anything about this problem. And this message was, I used to read and I keep it. I used to read and I keep it. That was all that I had started doing. During this time, one of my attempts at stopping, I had been to one of those AA meetings. And there another thing happened that I heard at that meeting. A member came up and spoke that I am so and so, I am an alcoholic, I am also a drug addict. I made it a point now, this is the same chap, this fellow will be able to understand me because he is like me. And I waited till the meeting was over and I went and spoke to him. Asif, I have also this problem. And we started talking together. He told me that he knew of another one person who had also stopped using, and through the charismatics, the church religious program that he had stopped to the charismatics. And he introduced me to this friend of mine. And this, for the first time, I developed a very good friendship. This friend, what I did was to take these letters, take this news, whatever I had, this literature, and I went up to this chap and I showed him what it was. He read that and he found out that he had already practiced what these steps had meant to be without knowing them that they were the steps. He knew that he had admitted he was powerless. He believed that God alone could help him. He had decided to put his life and his problem in God's hand. He had made his confession and all other things that he found that what the book was telling, that's what he had practiced. And he told me, this is the right thing now, Peter, we'll do it something for this. He and we started going regularly to meetings together. And I found now for the first time that I was able to stay clean without any problem by being in friendship with this friend of mine. He knew, or at least he was friendly with the church authorities, and soon he arranged for a place where we could meet with this little news and whatever little literature that we had. So we went and we started, he would go and bring some addicts and we would meet there 3 times a week. And I found that because of that, although nobody else was able to recover, I was the one who was able to stay stopped. After some time, what happened was in September of 83, the church authorities told that now, since we require this place for something else, for some other work, you better stop your meetings. And I got panicky for the first time because I knew that if these meetings were stopped, then I was not able to stay without a drink, without a smoke. I knew that I needed this meeting. And by this time I had met another priest from my parish who was able to help me. I went and contacted him and he told me that he could allow me to meet in his church. And there, on the 8th of September 1983, for the first time in this new place, we started once again to meet. And friends, now in 1996, in this 14th of September, this same place, we will be celebrating 13 years of this group. We have organized a whole night meeting, and the theme of that is anything is possible. So friends, this meeting place started in 1983, and we started 2, 3, 4 meeting regularly at this place, new place which we had at Mayhem. There were many of us who came and went. Very few started remaining there. But finally, after some few months, there was the first success when one of them stopped using. That time, downers and uppers was the main drug that was going on. Heroin came soon in that picture, and we found that many of them were difficult to get in the whole situation. Things started changing for the better. The only thing that I found was possible that I was able to stop. I was able to remain stopped. And the change, that whole situation was in 1990, when we had in Bombay the visit of Anthony and Mario from the World Service Office to our group in Bombay. This was the first time when we found that people really found that some people are concerned about us. This was the first time we found. By the time we were about 15 or 20 of us who were already clean, and we on our own had tried to print a small pamphlet gathering together all little information that we had, and with some of the AA literature that was mixed up, we brought out our own. This they seen for the first day when they came and visited our group. They seen for themselves what we had done, and they told us that this is not the right thing. You better dispose of. We were very disheartened because we had put in a lot of money and whatever little effort we had, and they told us, no, this you cannot use. But they did a wonderful thing, friends. They immediately sent for literature by which we were able to achieve a lot. Immediately at that time they found that both of them, I don't know how, but they were able to get us some basic text, get us some pamphlets, and get us. So this was what has brought about the change. This was what has showed us to live. This was what has brought a new life to us. So many of us are grateful for all these things that has happened. Today alone in Bombay, we have 23 meetings a week. During that time, there was one rehabilitation center in Bombay which used to admit addicts. They came, they were allowed to come to our meetings, and through that, many of the addicts who got clean went out to their home states, and the fellowship now has spread to all over India. We have 5 areas now in Bombay functioning, though we are trying now to form one region. This has not yet been able to do. We have a lot of problems in communicating, because we find if we are to go from one area to another, it takes about 2 days by train, and we don't find it as easy as here in Americas. The next wonderful thing that this fellowship, this World Service Office, was when they invited us to participate in the World Service Conference as a delegate of the Multinational Development Forum. This was in 1992. The fellowship decided to vote, and I was once again chosen to represent India and come here for the conference. I attended this conference in Dallas in 1992, and though I know that I did not contribute anything of mine towards the fellowship, towards the conference, I took back with me 2 wonderful things that has changed the whole picture of the fellowship in India. First was that I was told about the Hospitals and Institutions Subcommittee. Some friends here took me personally to visit a rehab and also a lockup, jail, which I had never seen before. I seen how powerful this medium is when we go and tell this to the addict who is really in need of the message there. And this in 1993, in the month of February, we had our first panel in one rehab center. Today, there are HNI subcommittees in the other areas also, but in Bombay, we have panels in 3 different places, 3 times a week. And most of our members today, which are increasing, are through this medium by going through this HNI panels. The second thing that at this conference that I took back was the power of hugs. Our fellowship never knew what is a hug. And when I went back after the conference, after receiving so many hugs, I went for the first time there and went back and started giving back. I showed them, and I could really feel the power when I found we could hug with each other. The difference that make by one addict hugging another addict. These two friends are the mediums that have brought about this wonderful change that is today in the Fellowship of Narcotics Anonymous in Bombay and in India. It is really wonderful, and I really can see the hugs that I have received when I have come here, since I have come here, the time since I landed there, when I seen that board in the hand of a member who said NA, I was really at top of the world when I just came out of the plane and she hugged me. And till today I found the power and the love and the joy and the concern that these members have shown, so many of you all, that I'm really, I'm unable to share, unable to say anything about it, the love and the understanding that I have received here. Two months back, friends, another one thing that happened was there was a message from the World Service Office to Bombay asking me to phone back the World Service on a collect basis after 9:30 in the night. I was wondering why, since I had not been very active in the fellowship now, I was wondering why I was called back. And when I called back, I received this message that I should come here to share at this convention. I was at the top of the world. I found now is another one chance that I've been coming to America, and another chance to meet so many people. And after 2 or 3 days, it was after I received this message and I agreed to coming, something clicked in my mind, or something came in my mind that, come on, Peter, now is the time that you will be meeting many of the members who will be of your age. The problem there, what has happened, that I am the oldest there. The average age of the member is about 30 to 35. They are all younger than that. And I am the one who is with the cleanest time. So I thought that I am the one who knows everything. And when nobody listen, or anybody who does not listen to me or does not do what I am telling, I used to feel hurt about it. I said, I know that what this guy, yesterday's boy is telling me what to do. I am gonna, because most of them are quite new to the program, and I used to feel that these fellows are quite young, what they know. And another thing was that I could not share with them. I was not able to share with them many of these personal things. And that time when I received this message, it struck me that now I will get people who will be probably older than me, who with more clean time than me, and with whom I can share. That is one thing that I was able to do. So that was the time when it came, Peter, now it is nearly 12, 13 years since you have really followed the program. Now is the time, now you will be getting somebody who is your age, or with whom you can share, or with whom you can talk. Because I had not done the fourth step since then. Practically, really speaking, I had done nothing of that. Only I was clean. And I was thinking that I would tell others to do what I am telling them to do, not to do what I am doing. That was what... This was what I was, and I just couldn't get anybody with whom I could really share my personality. And they were becoming more and more. I could not share because I thought that nobody would understand me. because all are quite young. What they know about what is what and what is not. And that was the time I once again took up that exercise book and pen and started writing. This came about because this chance was given that I have been invited and I will be meeting many people who will be with whom I would be able to share. This brought about this change, and I am really grateful for this invitation that had come, because once again now I started putting into practice these 12 steps of the program in my life. I admit it. I have a sponsor who is much younger than me, and now at the time when I started writing, I went and talked to him. I said, yeah, this is the scene. Then now I wish to make this once again. That I told him exactly, say, this is the scene, what it is. And he told me, then instead of fourth, why not do the first, second and third? And I started writing out those first, second and third, and I found that so many things were there, and how much difficult it was, what are the things that I was powerless now, so many things were there, my grandiosity, my things of that all-knowing attitude. These sort of things were there which I started getting now once again in my life. When I started looking at it, I believe now that I was powerless of all them. My whole life was unmanageable. I was just putting up a front. Now is the time I really bent down and asked God that you help me now. What am I to do? That I decided now to put my life in His hands and said about it. And I started little of the fourth step, started doing that. I wrote down the fourth step over there. And it came to my mind, now come Peter, whatever it is, this fellow is young or he understands you, he's your sponsor, do that thing. And we had a talk with him. We had a deep talk where I found that I was able to unload whatever things that I wanted to. I spoke to him, I had a good talk with him. And I started really, friends, a change came about me than what I was just 2 months ago. I made this fifth step with him. I admitted my defects, I admitted my wrongs. I really came to see what, since the time I had made my last fourth step, last fifth step. My last fifth step was with a priest which I had some years ago, that was in about 12 to 13 years ago. And this now brought about once again the little joy, the little peace which I was just missing from there. I knew now I had to make amends, especially to two institutions or two persons. One was my wife, who suffered the most, all during my using and also during my clean time also, because I was just unable to understand her. And the second was the place of work where I was, because of the harm that I had done by my pilfering and other things, what I had done during my whole using. These two were the main things which I had to make amends to. And I decided now that I had to show extra love to my wife, to find that, to repay all the harm or what the trouble I had given her. And at the workshop where I work, I made it a point now to work a little extra, more than what I really need to repay back, because I know that I will never be able to repay what I have, with the harm that I have caused the railway workshop by my robbing, by my stealing, and by my not working as to what I should work. These are the things that I have found that I have been able to change within these 2 months, or make a lot of difference in my life now. And the 10th, 11th step I usually used to practice, but today the practice is a little different, in the sense that I really am able to be in closer contact with my higher power, to thank Him for all that He has done for me. And lastly, I would share, friends, a small Indian tale, or it is not a story as such, but it is what has been practiced in the villages of India, where you find that they have a person is appointed by the village panchayat just to go about in the night from dusk to dawn with a bell in his hand and a staff, and he goes about shouting out just these two words, jagte raho, which means keep awake, keep awake. This person just goes about the village around from night till morning, doing this thing, keep awake, keep awake. And you find that although he goes about, the villagers, people sleeping, listen to him, but nobody keeps awake. They all asleep. This is what happens. So I too have decided in the same way that though people may not keep awake, yes or no, but I myself am going to do this shouting so that I find that at least I myself will be able to keep awake. This is what I have decided as friends. So once again, friends, I would end my sharing by thanking each one of you who have given me the most wonderful days of my life here, these 3 days which I am here, that I can never forget. I will be never forgetting these days, the love, the concern, the hugs that I have received here, which I really can feel today, that there are people who really care for people who are lost, who find that they are there. There were so many in the fellowship here who have contributed to this occasion where I am here standing. I thank the host committee who has made this effort of bringing me here, seeing that I am well placed here, looking after me. This, what they have done, I know that I will never be able to forget. Especially this point when they brought about that I am able to practice the principle or practice the program once again in my life. This is what they have showed me how to live. Thank you, friends, for listening.
I'd like to thank our